My name is Tiffany Newell, and I've always been the kind of woman who holds things together quietly, steadily, without asking for much in return. I wasn't ready for the day the man I loved would publicly unravel everything with one thoughtless caption. It happened on an ordinary evening. I'd just gotten home from work, kicked off my heels, and was deciding whether to cook pasta or surrender to takeout when Instagram pinged. Out of habit, I opened the app. The first story at the top of my feed was his. A photo of us, me leaning into him during our last date night, smiling soft and warm, my arm around his waist. And the caption, "Settling for less because I'm tired of being alone," with a heart emoji. For a moment, I honestly believed I'd misread it. Maybe it was a quote he meant to post on some other image. Maybe it was a draft that leaked. Anything that wasn't this. But when I refreshed the app, it remained. Public, sharp, humiliating. I felt my lungs tighten as comments started appearing underneath. "King, you deserve better. Bro, don't settle. Know your worth. You can do so much more." I stared at the screen and a coldness spread through my chest. Less. That's what he thought of me. Less. Everything I had poured into us. Every sacrifice. Every late night pep talk. Every moment. I bent so he didn't have to break it. All collapsed beneath that single sentence. This wasn't a private issue. He'd turned our relationship into entertainment for strangers. Into a punchline. I set my phone down carefully, like if I moved too fast, the last 3 years would shatter even further. The apartment around me felt suddenly foreign, like a rented stage set we'd been pretending to build a life on. My mind raced through memories. The time he lost a major freelance client and spiraled, and I stayed up until 4 a.m., helping him rework his portfolio. The winter I covered rent when he was laid off. The business trip offer I turned down because he begged me not to leave, saying he couldn't handle the distance right now. I had been stable for both of us. I had been his harbor. And now he needed the world to know I wasn't enough. But even that wasn't the most painful part. No, the worst was the small knowing voice inside me, whispering that I had felt this shift coming. He'd been drifting for months. More time on his phone. More nights out for networking. More conversations ending with him comparing our life to someone else's feed. And always the name Tara creeping up. She's just a friend. She's part of the team. You're reading too much into things. But Tara was alive in ways he craved. Flashy trips, wild nights, curated chaos that he mistook for depth. She was also, inconveniently, his ex-girlfriend. The one he still followed. The one he still liked posts from at 1 a.m. I'd ignored the unease because loving someone sometimes requires trust. But trust without respect is a trap. And tonight he proved exactly which side of that line he stood on. I didn't cry, not yet. Instead, something steadier took root inside me, a slow, quiet clarity. A voice saying, "Enough." I walked to our bedroom and pulled out my duffel bag. My hands moved automatically. Jeans, tops, laptop, a few books, my toiletries. I left everything that wasn't strictly mine. The coffee maker I bought for our mornings, the throw blanket he loved, even the travel journal I'd started for a future trip to Europe, a trip I once dreamed of surprising him with. Let him keep the artifacts of a woman he didn't value. As I moved through the apartment, memories tried to rise, soft laughter on this couch, late night takeout at this table, the warm way he used to wrap his arms around me. But the caption drowned them out. When the bag was zipped, I grabbed a notepad from the kitchen drawer. My handwriting was steady, almost eerily calm. "Hope you find more. You're settling alone now." That was all. I placed the note beside my key on the counter. A new notification appeared on my phone, 10 more likes on his story. A few emojis. Someone wrote facts. Upgrade soon. My stomach twisted once hard and then something inside me went still. I didn't check the story again. I simply picked up my bag, walked to the door, and paused for a single breath. The hallway beyond looked dimmer than usual, the air heavy with finality. I stepped through it, locked the door behind me. And with that, the life I'd been fighting to keep together quietly ended. Mark's apartment wasn't far. He'd been a friend since college, the kind who never asked for explanations before offering a couch. When he opened the door and saw me with luggage, his expression jumped from confusion to anger on my behalf. "Tiff, what happened?" Wordlessly, I handed him my phone. He read the story and let out a low whistle. "Damn, that's cold. You okay?" "Not really," I admitted. "But I'm not going back." He nodded firmly. "You're doing the right thing. No drama, no yelling, just done." That night, I lay awake on his lumpy guest mattress, staring at the ceiling. The pain didn't come in sobs, it settled, like dust, quiet and suffocating. How long had he thought I was less? How long had I ignored the signs? By morning, my mind felt numb but strangely sharp. I blocked him on Instagram. Didn't block his number yet. Some part of me wanted to see how he'd react, though I already knew the apology would not fix what he'd broken. There was no apology big enough for public betrayal. I made coffee, breathed deeply, and told myself one truth. This isn't the end of my life. It's the end of losing myself. Outside, the city moved on like nothing had happened. But for me, everything had changed. The first day after I left felt strangely weightless, like the world was moving, but I wasn't connected to it yet. I sat at Mark's kitchen table with a mug of coffee that kept growing cold, staring at the steam until it faded. I didn't touch my phone for hours, but when I finally did, everything I expected and dreaded was waiting there for me. It began with confusion. Where are you? This isn't funny. Then irritation. Tiff, answer me. Seriously. Then indignation. Why did you leave your key? What game are you playing? And finally, when he realized silence was all he was getting, saw your note. That's petty as hell. Let's talk like adults. Adults! The word rolled around in my mind like a bitter pill, publicly humiliating your girlfriend adult, writing a quiet goodbye and walking out petty. I blocked him. For the first time in months, maybe years, my phone stopped buzzing. No notifications, no little spikes of dread, just stillness. I didn't realize how loud he had become in my life until he was abruptly muted. The following week passed in slow, deliberate motions. I didn't move through it like a woman free from heartbreak. I moved like someone rebuilding herself cell by cell. Every morning I woke early without an alarm. Not because I felt refreshed, more because rest refused to settle. I made coffee, showered, dressed, drove to work. Each mundane action felt like learning how to walk again. Nights were the hardest. Mark would sit beside me on the couch, scrolling through his phone or watching TV, giving me space without leaving me alone. I appreciated that more than I knew how to say. But when the lights dimmed and the apartment went quiet, my mind replayed everything on a loop. His caption, that photo of us, the comments laughing, agreeing, validating his cruelty, the months leading up to it, the late nights, the emotional distance, the name Tara drifting into conversations like smoke. My therapist asked me why I left. It was such a simple question, but it tugged something raw. I told her the surface truth that he made our private relationship public in the worst way. But she pushed gently. Has he been treating you as less for longer than you've allowed yourself to admit? That question didn't leave me. It sat in the corner of every room, quiet but unignorable. Because the truth was long before the Instagram story, he'd already started leaving me in small ways. The way he angled his body away on the couch. The way he scrolled endlessly through Tara's pictures, eyes soft with longing, like she had the life he wanted and I was the life he tolerated. The way he dismissed my concerns with a lazy, "You're being insecure," even though insecurity had never been part of who I was before him. It was startling the amount of room I'd allowed his excuses to occupy. Word of the breakup trickled through our friend group. I didn't announce it, but people talk, and some of them came to me quietly. Saw what he posted. That wasn't cool, one friend said. Another sent screenshots where commenters dragged him instead of praising him. The same people who had laughed along at first were now calling him out. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt exhausted. Somewhere in the middle of processing everything I learned about Tara, how close they'd grown at work, how flirtatious it had become, how people saw them laughing together in hallways, sharing inside jokes, disappearing during lunch breaks. Emotional cheating often hides behind plausible deniability, but hindsight is merciless. He hadn't drifted accidentally. He'd drifted towards someone. And I had been too loyal, too hopeful, too willing to bend. As the days blurred, I found myself rekindling forgotten parts of my life. I started painting again, sloppy strokes at first, then calmer ones. I tried yoga not to be productive, but to breathe. I cooked meals with Mark, burnt some perfected others. Little by little, the space he had occupied in my mind began shrinking, making room for something unfamiliar myself. He meanwhile was unraveling. Someone told me Tara wasn't the whirlwind dream she pretended to be. Behind the photos were credit card debt, unstable gigs, impulsive decisions. Their spark lasted a few chaotic weeks before crashing spectacularly, a shouting match, thrown clothes, a broken lamp, and him standing shirtless in a hallway with nowhere to go. I should have felt something at that image. Pity maybe, satisfaction. But all I felt was distance. as if it was happening to someone I once knew in a different lifetime. About 5 weeks after I moved out, I did something stupid or brave, depending on who you ask. I unblocked his number. Not to reconcile, not to open the door, just to stop running from the possibility of closure, to prove to myself that his voice couldn't break me anymore. Within minutes, my phone lit up like a warning flare. "Hey, can we talk Tiff, please? I miss you. What happened to us? I'm sorry. A lot has gone wrong. I need you." Message after message, flooding in, his desperation palpable even through the screen. There was no anger this time, no superiority, just a frantic scramble to grab what he had thrown away. I stared at it, all my heart beating steadily, astonishingly steadily. The girl who trembled, packing her bag, who cried into a stranger's shoulder during therapy, who questioned her worth because of one caption. She wasn't here anymore. Something had shifted, something had closed. And I had the strange, sharp feeling that this was only the beginning of his unraveling, and only the beginning of my beginning. I didn't answer his texts, not the first day, not the second. The messages kept coming, sometimes apologetic, sometimes nostalgic, sometimes angry, in that brittle way a person gets when they're losing control of the narrative. I read them only once, then muted the thread. Not blocked, muted. Blocking felt emotional. Muting felt like closure. Meanwhile, life quietly began rearranging itself around me. Work became a refuge. I threw myself into a major project I'd been quietly leading for months, the kind of assignment I might have hesitated to take before because he always claimed I was overworking whenever he wanted attention. Now staying late at the office felt liberating, my boss noticed. "You've been killing it lately, Tiffany," she said one afternoon. "Have you considered applying for the senior position?" A position I had once turned down because moving to another city would have stressed him out. He used to say he'd be lost without me. Funny how a person can weaponize dependence until you forget you're capable of growth. Now I said, yes, I'm ready. And I meant it. I started hitting the gym again, lost a few pounds without even trying. My skin cleared. I slept better, not long, but deeply. For the first time in years, I felt like someone worth being. Mark noticed too. "You're glowing," he said one night as we cooked dinner. "Am I?" "Oh yeah. Definitely post-toxic rebound glow." We laughed, but a part of me realized he was right. I wasn't healing fast, I was healing honestly. And sometimes honesty accelerates things. Still, I'd be lying if I said the whole thing was painless. Some days I woke up and felt the phantom of him next to me, the shape he used to make beneath the blankets, the warmth on the other side of the bed, the familiarity of routine. But then I'd remember, that warmth had slowly grown cold. That presence had become absence long before I walked out. And I'd get up, make coffee, and choose myself again. While I rebuilt, he was falling apart. I didn't look for updates, but when you share mutual friends, the information comes whether you want it or not. Apparently, after Tara kicked him out, he tried staying with another coworker for a few days, but the arrangement fell apart quickly. His temper, usually hidden behind his polished social media image, wasn't as charming in close quarters. Someone told me he'd started showing up late to work, sometimes hungover, sometimes not showing up at all. Tara moved on quickly. Not surprising. People like her rarely linger in the aftermath. They thrive in beginnings and never stay for consequences. One friend told me she'd seen Tara at a bar with another man a week after kicking my ex out. She looked fine, she said. Better than fine. My ex, meanwhile, was unraveling online. His once carefully curated Instagram feed went from glamorous and upbeat to erratic, cryptic quotes, blurry photos of city lights, a selfie with red eyes that almost made me feel something, until I remembered I had spent months falling asleep beside a man who looked at another woman with a hunger he never looked at me with. Another message popped up from him the following week. "I made a mistake. I see that now. I want to fix things." I muted it without hesitation. One day after work, I stopped by a coffee shop. I used to love the one with the quiet corner booth where I used to write in my journal. I hadn't been there since before the breakup. Walking in felt like opening a door I hadn't touched in ages, but instead of sadness, I felt calm, like the space wasn't haunted anymore. I sat with my latte and wrote my own name at the top of a blank page. Tiffany Newell, what do you want now? The pen moved easily, writing things I hadn't admitted, even to myself. Travel. A new apartment. A life filled with steadiness, not the kind that suffocates, but the kind that strengthens. Someone who sees me as equal, not consolation. Someone who doesn't need to belittle me to feel bigger. I didn't think about him once during that list, but he was thinking about me. The next morning I woke to a voicemail, his voice shaking. Tiff, please. Tara wasn't what I thought. She used me. Everything's falling apart. I lost my place. Work's on my back. I don't have anyone to talk to. I miss you. I miss us. Please call me. I didn't. Not because I was being cruel, but because empathy is not the same as obligation. He had needed me when it was convenient. Now he needed me because he had nothing left. I wasn't going to be his fallback plan, his emotional cushion. The safe place he ran to only after excitement chewed him up and spit him out. I had been that woman once. I would not be her again. As the weeks turned into a second month, things continued shifting in opposite directions. I got the promotion I had once turned down. He lost the apartment we once lived in. I started planning a solo weekend getaway, a little cabin by a lake. He started posting sad quotes about losing the real ones. I met new people at work, made new friends, laughed more. He reached out again, this time with the same desperation I had once felt alone in our shared bedroom. And then without warning, something shifted inside me. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. His downfall wasn't my victory. My rise wasn't his punishment. He was living the consequences of his choices, and I was living the results of my courage. One night, as I muted yet another message from him, long, rambling, emotional, I realized something profound. I no longer ached for him. I no longer missed him. I no longer cared about the us he kept begging to resurrect. He wasn't a wound anymore. He was a scar healed and harmless. But I also knew something else was coming. Desperation doesn't disappear, it escalates. And the moment he realized he had truly lost me, that's when he showed up in person. He showed up first at Mark's place. It was a Tuesday night, raining lightly, the kind of soft rain that smells like wet pavement and fresh disappointment. Mark and I were watching a movie when the buzzer sounded. We weren't expecting anyone. Mark paused, the screen frowned, and checked the monitor. His expression dropped. Oh, hell no. What I asked. He turned the monitor so I could see. There he was, hood up, soaked through, shifting from foot to foot like a man who didn't know whether he wanted to knock or run. Tiffany, please. His voice crackled through the intercom. I know you're there. I just want to talk. My stomach tightened. Not in longing, not anymore, but in annoyance at the inevitable. He had waited until everything around him collapsed before remembering I existed. Mark shot me a look. Want me to tell him to leave? I nodded. Mark pressed the button. She's not interested, man. Go home. His reply came fast. I don't have a home. There was something pathetic about hearing those words spoken out loud, but sympathy didn't rise in me. He had chosen the path that led here. I wasn't going to drag him out of the ditch he dug for himself. Tiffany, he said again, voice cracking. Please, just talk to me. I didn't respond. Eventually, Mark hit the buzzer again, cutting off the intercom. We waited. He lingered for a minute, then he left. That should have been the end. But desperation has a way of circling back. 2 days later, he showed up at my workplace. I knew something was wrong the moment reception called my desk. Tiffany. There's someone asking for you in the lobby. I wasn't expecting anyone. The moment I stepped around the corner and saw him pacing, hair disheveled, clutching his phone, every muscle in my body tensed. He spotted me and nearly ran over. Tiff. He looked out of breath. Please, can we talk somewhere private? No. The word came out clean firm, with a strength I hadn't realized I had grown. He blinked, startled. Just like that, after everything. I tilted my head slightly. You mean after everything you did? He flinched, but pressed on. I messed up, okay, Tara. She was a nightmare. She lied about everything. She used me. She threw my stuff out. I should have listened to you. I should never have compared you two. I made the biggest mistake of my life. There was a time when hearing this would have cracked something open in me. Now all I felt was distance, like watching someone else's tragedy from a safe seat behind glass. I'm sorry things didn't work out with her, I said, but that has nothing to do with me. It does, he insisted, stepping closer before I recoiled, and he stopped. I didn't appreciate what we had. I took you for granted. Just give me one chance, one conversation. I'll fix everything. You can't fix anything, I said quietly, because the person who hurt me is still standing right in front of me. He swallowed, eyes glossy. You're being cruel. No, I'm being clear. He stared at me as if he couldn't understand the shift, as if he couldn't fathom a world where I wasn't waiting for him. That was the first time I realized the truth. He had believed he could always come back. He thought I would always leave the door cracked open. He didn't understand that I had closed it the night he humiliated me. Please, he whispered, voice small, don't do this. But I already had. Security approached, politely sensing tension. Is everything okay here? Yes, I said calmly. I was just leaving. And I walked away. His voice followed me, calling my name, but it felt like an echo fading in a hallway I no longer lived in. That confrontation drained me, but in a cleansing way, like exhaling air I'd been holding for too long. I wasn't alone for long, because a week later during a project meeting at work, I met Daniel. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't dramatic, he didn't fill his feed with curated adventures. But he listened when I spoke. He asked thoughtful questions. He smiled in a way that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. When the meeting ended, he lingered a moment. Tiffany, right? Yes, I liked your approach on the client brief. You think deeply about things. Force of habit, I said with a small smile. Well, he said it's refreshing. It was nothing flirtatious, just warm, grounded, steady. Everything my ex never was. We crossed paths more after that. Shared elevators, exchanged coffee recommendations, a few lunches with coworkers that slowly turned into lunches with just the two of us. He never made a move, never leaned too close, never made me feel on edge. He was simply easy to be around. One afternoon, as we walked out of the building together, he said, "You're different than most people here, in a good way." I hope so. You seem like someone who's been carrying a lot but still walks forward. I paused. Is it that obvious? He smiled softly. No, but I recognized the look of someone who decided to save herself. I didn't answer, but something in me softened at the truth of it. Our connection grew naturally without pressure. He didn't need me to fix him, validate him, or rescue him. He didn't ask for emotional labor disguised as love. He was the opposite of chaos, the opposite of comparison, the opposite of less. And maybe that was why, for the first time since the breakup, I felt something new: anticipation. But just as things were beginning to feel light again, my ex's desperation intensified. Late-night calls from unknown numbers, messages attempting guilt nostalgia manipulation, a LinkedIn request from his sister telling me I was being dramatic, a voicemail from his mother insisting I show maturity. I didn't respond to any of it, not out of spite, out of peace. And peace apparently was the one thing he couldn't stand. Because when he finally realized nothing would pull me back, he escalated one last time. He showed up at a friend's birthday party, a rooftop downtown, and marched straight toward me in front of everyone. The final collision was about to begin. The rooftop was strung with warm lights, music drifting lazily between clusters of people laughing over cocktails. I hadn't planned to stay long. It was my friend Sarah's birthday, and she'd insisted I come, no drama. I promised, she'd said. I believed her. Our circle had settled since the breakup, and most people knew where I stood. Daniel came with me, not as a boyfriend, nothing defined yet, but as someone whose presence felt steady grounding. He brushed my hand lightly as we stepped onto the rooftop. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, surprised to realize I meant it. But the moment we reached the center of the party, the entire energy shifted. People's eyes widened. Conversations faltered. A few drinks froze midair. I didn't need to turn around to know why. His voice came from behind me, sharp and too loud. "Tiffany." I closed my eyes briefly. Not fear, not longing, just annoyance. Like hearing a ringtone you thought you deleted years ago. I turned slowly. He looked worse than before. Hair, unkempt shirt, wrinkled eyes, hollow with sleeplessness. He wasn't the polished man who once posed next to me in curated photos. He looked exactly like someone who had run out of places to hide. He ignored everyone else stepping directly into my space. "We need to talk." "No, we don't." My voice didn't shake. His did. "You blocked me again." "Yes." "You won't return my calls." "I won't." "You're avoiding me." "I am." A few people near us exchanged glances, uncomfortable but unwilling to get involved. Sarah hovered nearby, ready to intervene if needed. Daniel stayed beside me, calm but alert, hands at his sides, posture steady, not possessive, not territorial, just present. My ex's gaze flicked to Daniel, instantly souring. "So this is why," he said. "Upgraded already, huh?" Daniel inhaled, but I lightly touched his arm. "I've got this." I faced my ex squarely. "This isn't about upgrades. This is about choices." His jaw tightened. My choice was a mistake. Okay, Tara was a mistake. Everything blew up. My apartment, my job, my life. I'm trying to tell you I'm sorry. I'm trying to fix this. "You're not trying to fix anything," I said. "You're trying to erase consequences." His face twisted. "God, you're cold. I pour my heart out and you just what? Stand there like you don't care." "I don't," I said simply. That word landed like a stone dropped into water ripples moving across the rooftop. Someone gasped quietly. Someone else whispered, "Good for her." He blinked rapidly. "You don't mean that. You can't." "I can," I said, and I do. He stepped closer again, desperate now. "We had years together, Tiffany. Years. And you're throwing it away. For him. He jabbed a finger toward Daniel. This isn't about him, I said. It's about you. It's about the moment you told the world I was less. It's about the months you drifted away while I held everything together. It's about Tara. It's about choosing excitement over stability, chaos over loyalty, attention over respect. I made a mistake, he shouted. So did I replied. I stayed too long. Silence fell. His voice cracked. Please, I miss you. I miss us. You miss having someone who cleaned up your messes, I said. Not me. He stared at me like he didn't recognize the woman standing in front of him. And maybe he didn't. Because for the first time, I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't pleading. I wasn't bending myself into shapes to make him comfortable. I was whole, and he was too late. He scoffed suddenly, bitterness rising like bile. Fine. Whatever. You think he's better than me? His eyes burned toward Daniel. Enjoy your boring little rebound. He'll never give you what I did. Daniel's voice was calm and even when he finally spoke. Respect, stability, kindness. You're right. I'll never give her what you did. A few people snickered. Even Sarah cracked a small smile behind her drink. My ex flushed scarlet, humiliated in a way he clearly wasn't used to. He opened his mouth maybe to insult, maybe to plead, but I cut him off gently. You taught me something, I said. You taught me that if someone shows you you're less to them, believe them. I believed you that night. And I walked away. You don't get access to me now. He swallowed hard. You'll regret this, he whispered. No, I said, I already don't. He stormed off then, pushing past people, disappearing through the rooftop exit. No one followed him. Not one person. It was over. I exhaled slowly. Daniel touched my hand again, not pulling, not coaxing, just offering presence. You okay? He asked softly. Yes, I said again. And this time it felt like truth anchored deep inside me. We stayed at the party a little longer. I laughed genuinely, something that had felt impossible months ago. When Daniel walked me to my car later, we didn't kiss. We didn't need to. Some moments don't require punctuation to be meaningful. The weeks after were quiet in the best ways. I blocked my ex everywhere, including his family. I moved into a new apartment with tall windows and morning light. I decorated it with plants, candles, soft blankets, things that felt like me. Work thrived. My friendships deepened. I took the cabin trip alone one weekend and felt more peaceful than I had in years. Daniel and I kept seeing each other slowly, gently, without pressure. A healthy beginning, not a patch over an old wound. My life became something steady again, something deliberate, something mine. Months later, I booked a trip to Europe, the one I once saved for someone who didn't value me. This time, I booked it for myself. If Daniel wanted to join, he was welcome, but it wasn't dependent on him. My choices finally belonged to me. As for my ex, I heard through Sarah that he was still struggling, posting vague quotes, fishing for sympathy, retelling the story in ways that made him the victim. It didn't matter. He was a chapter, not a story. And if he ever somehow read this, if he ever wondered what became of the girl he once labeled as less, I hope he finds comfort in the truth. He was